I spent 10 years working in marketing, and there's this one particular company, which you'll know, that is run by the father, and the other part of the company is run by the son. And the son's business started a little bit later, but they're both in the same industry. I'd go to the father's office every week and I'd present him new ideas. And he'd spend 6 months, 9 months waiting for Rochelle to get back from annual leave to sign it off and arguing about the details, etc. I'd bring the same idea to the son that same day. Literally, they live on the offices are on the same street. He would interrupt me halfway through. He'd go and tell his assistant, go and get Nikki. He'd call the marketing team in, tell me to repeat it. He'd look at both of us without a contract, his marketing team and me, and say, do this now. And what he intuitively knew is what a lot of the successful people I interview know, is that the biggest cost in life isn't a failed experiment, being wrong about a decision. It is the 9 months, the 10 years, the 15 years you waste deciding whether to make the decision, because that was a type 2 decision where if we were wrong, okay, 20K, but the next day we're closer to conducting another experiment to find the right answer. And I sat there for 5 years watching this son's business just gradually creep up on his father's, take over the father's. And I was in both boardrooms thinking, it's just because he makes decisions at a much faster rate and his risk equation is reversed. Daddy thinks the risk is being wrong in a decision. Son thinks the risk is not making a decision. And his business grew, sold the company, the son. He now lives in Monaco and Dubai, and he's got more hundreds of millions than anyone would ever know. Dad's still there running the business. And so that sense of urgency to throw open those type 2 doors is so deeply ingrained in me. It's the same way we run these businesses. It's all about experimentation.
Let me give you a personal example of a decision, a type 2 decision that I think people think is a type 1.
Yeah.
One of the best things that you could do if you are in a relationship that sucks or is sucking the life force out of you is to break up.
Yeah.
Or if you're married, to say out loud, I want a divorce, I'm miserable. And the reason why that is a type 2 decision that people mistake for a type 1 is because simply saying this isn't working causes a change in the relationship for the better.
Not.
Or not. But the only way that relationship is actually changing is if you make a decision to say the way that it is isn't working. And so I personally feel like part of the framework of the type 1 and type 2 decision is insanely helpful. And the issue for most of us is that we mistake those type 2 decisions
100%.
for something else. And
she can go back and be a banker.
Of course, that's true. She can go back and be a banker.
And yet she's doorstepping Mel Robbins in an airport. And I'm telling you now, as a banker, she's got a couple of dollars, probably. But she will probably become the dad in that example and ruminate over that decision for 3 years. She might go and try working with kids yesterday and find out it sucks.
Yep.
And that's what the son knew. The son would conduct the experiments, right or wrong. He was closer to the correct answer. The problem is people never make the decision to get the feedback. Failure is feedback. Feedback is knowledge, and knowledge is power. They never get the knowledge because they never want to fail. So they live sort of trapped and imprisoned in their current misery because they've got the risk equation the wrong way around, and they don't realize that urgency is part of the answer.
To the person that is in that conundrum, I'm a banker, I think I want to be over here. How do you find out, or do you have another matrix that you use to figure out what you actually want in a moment where you're just engulfed with uncertainty?
My natural reaction was to go back to the way I've built and run all my businesses, which is scientific method, which is the experimentation. And I think that's the only way we find out in life, but no one wants to do it. If I had a 7-year-old kid and they said, Dad, I want to sell pen lids, I'd go, fantastic. That weekend, we're going to go to the pen lid museum and find out. because failure is the feedback that you're searching for. It isn't doorstepping Mel Robbins in an airport. And on life matters of purpose and meaning, Mel Robbins in an airport can't tell you what your purpose and meaning is and whether it's kids or banking. So failure is feedback. Feedback is the knowledge you're looking for, and knowledge is power. So therefore failure is the power you're looking for. Currently you feel disempowered. And the only way that you're going to feel empowered and feel the power that you're seeking is to
fail at the thing you're doing, which is banking.
Fail.
Or fail at teaching.
Failing at trying something new. We can find the right answer in a world that is so nuanced and ever changing, not by reading a book or doorstepping Mel in an airport, but by running the experiment like a type 2 decision as fast as we can. The world is only going to change faster and faster and faster than ever before, which means the correct answer to these life questions, how to structure a marriage, how to work from home or office, how to build a business, all these things, the correct answer is going to change so quickly that you're not going to get it anywhere else other than conducting an experiment in your life, which means taking that first step. And my whole thesis for why any of the companies I run will be successful is because we outfail the competition. Any of my businesses, I can tell you how many experiments my head of experimentation and failure conducted this week. I can tell you how many, And I take the same approach for my life, which is in my romantic relationship.
How does that work in relationships?
I'll tell you. So convention says, for example, that two people in a relationship, have to sleep in the same bed at night. But if you reason from first principles basically like something that you know to be true about now and your situation.
Okay.
Which is if you reject all conventions nonsense and think that's other people's solutions for other people's times, other people's situations. So put simply, a first principle of mine and my girlfriend's relationship is that we have different chronotypes. A chronotype basically dictates the time when you are activated, you're creative, what time you wake up in the morning, when you get hungry.
Does that mean like a night person versus a morning person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then that has implications for how you sleep. So my girlfriend is a whale chronotype, which basically means she goes to bed at like 9 p.m. She gets up at 6. That's you.
Same.
I'm an owl, which means that I go to bed at 1 or 2 a.m. and I get up at about 8 or 9. Kind of just let it run, as you know. I don't set an alarm. That's one first principle. We have different chronotypes. First principle number 2 is that so many relationships end, according to Matthew Walker, who's the sleep expert, about, I think he said 10 to 20% of relationships can be linked back to sleep issues. Couples not sleeping properly, which causes arguments, all kinds of issues in their relationships. He says 10 to 20%. So we know that we need to get sleep. Maybe a third point is when you understand sleep cycles, as I know you do, the restorative sleep happens about 60 minutes into the cycle when you go into stage 4, which is REM sleep. But also most of the REM sleep and those sleep cycles get shorter late at night. So if I go to bed at 2 a.m., it's by 6, 7 a.m. that my sleep cycles are really, really short. They go down from like 90 minutes to like 45 minutes. All of my restorative sleep is happening most of it is happening between the hours of 6 and 9. So in that example, if my girlfriend wakes up at 6, she can destroy 50% of my restorative sleep, which is then going to put me in a terrible mood the next day.
Right.
So on days where she has to get out of bed early for whatever reason, we have a spare room. Convention goes, he doesn't love you, right? But first principles and thinking for yourself in a world that's always changing and you're conducting experiments to find the answer goes, you're both going to be happier when you wake up, giving your relationship more chance. It's the same thing with me quitting university. It's the same thing with all the stories I've told about quitting. Rejection of convention, and I'm going to find out by conducting an experiment myself. And in my partner, I've got a good experimentation partner who understands that the goal here isn't satisfying external expectation, as we said. It goes back to how do we feel? So, yeah.
Amazing.
So we have a spare, I sleep in a different bed.
And it sounds like it's a great thing.
It's a great relationship.
It's a great thing.
Because we don't have insecurity. The insecurity comes from external narrative. It comes from, well, if he's sleeping in that room over there, then he doesn't love you. Of course I fucking love you. Where did you get that nonsense from? Instagram. And it's the same thing with our lives.
Yeah.
Where did you get that nonsense about you wanted to be a banker from?
Your parents.
Your parents or
your friends.
Yeah, or some teacher in school said that would make you happy and rich. You didn't run the experiment yourself, so you never got the feedback. You didn't get the knowledge, and now you're disempowered. So
wow.
That's how I build all my businesses. It's how I run everything in my life, is just the assumption that I probably don't know the right answer, and convention probably doesn't either.
But if I actually sit down with a blank piece of paper and I go first principles,
Yeah.
which are the things that I care about, the things that I know, and what I actually want, then I can make a decision for me.
You can reason up from there.
I want to go back to the ant and the spider in the circle. How would you advise someone who's listening to this and they're like, but I don't trust myself, but I have a string of examples of how I've blown it?
Evidence. You have a string of evidence about how you've blown it.
Yes. So how do you, what would be like the next right step for somebody who's like, I want to go off the cliff. I want to erase the circle. I want to sell the pack of cigarettes. I really want a breakthrough in testing what I believe about myself. Is there a way that anybody could kind of set up something like this?
Yeah. So I think the going off the cliff analogy is so terrifying that it's inaccessible. And this is part of the reason why I think people don't act in line with the person they want to be, because they see it as climbing Mount Everest. They can see a Mel Robbins at the top of the mountain, but they can also see the 15 years of walking they're going to have to do to get to where they want to go. And as Nia Ayel said on my podcast, we are creatures that are discomfort avoiding. We avoid discomfort. You know, I always wondered why I procrastinate in some things in my life. And he made a very compelling case to me when he came on my show, Nia Ayel, that it's because there's some discomfort I'm avoiding. So the book I have to write, I get to chapter 11, it's about something I'm not that familiar with. I end up picking up my phone and doing the dishes. I'm avoiding the psychological discomfort associated with the task. Become aware of the psychological discomfort and then break it down into little pebbles so it doesn't feel like Mount Everest. And for me, that's how I've taken on some of my biggest challenges in life. It has to start with an action that sometimes feels contrary to how you feel, something you said as well.
Right.
You can't rely on emotion to get you there, but it's the smallest step you can take to counteract your existing evidence about yourself. 14 years old for me, that was walking out on stage in front of my peers, pissing my pants and running out of the room after delivering a talk. I then went back onto the stage a couple of days later. I ran out of the room and the piece of paper I was given, my hands were shaking so much that I couldn't read it. So I just made up the words, blurted out the words, ran out.
Got it. Okay.
The reason why I can then speak in Sao Paulo with Obama in a big arena of tens of thousands of people is because I put myself in situations, whether small or big, to counteract my existing evidence. And something a friend once said to me recently was, the reason we don't do that, the reason we don't take that small step forward is sometimes the small step is so unbelievably embarrassing that we don't think it will be consequential. We're so ashamed by how small that step has to be. For some people, that's literally getting out of the bed and going to the toilet. And there's so much shame associated with that. It feels so minute and inconsequential that we don't think it matters, but it's everything. That first step is everything. It's the pack of cigarettes.
I think I can maybe even make this more tactical for the person listening. So if you think about what Stephen's teaching you, and let's go to the example of the banker, right? Who thinks she wants to be a teacher. And I can imagine her standing on a piece of paper with a circle around her.
Yeah.
And the first step is not quitting the banking job. The first step, which literally takes her out of that circle and across the line.
Can I guess what you're going to say?
Go for it.
Is it using your evenings and weekends?
It could be that. It could be Googling teaching certificate. It could be using your evenings and weekends. Like, it's literally one move out of the circle.
I always think this with people when they say to me they want to start a business, and then they say to me 6 months later they want to start a business, and then 6 months later, I go, I think part of the reason you're not doing it is because you see the challenge as like Mount Everest, and that's causing you so much psychological discomfort that you're channeling that energy into procrastination, talking and deferring it. What you need to do today is start the Instagram page. This for me is one of my big hacks in life, is the minute I go on Instagram, click create new account, and I just write the name, the train has left the station. And it's that for me is starting the business. One of my friends said to me back then, they said, you're either going to be a millionaire or in jail. I was that desperate.
To leave a situation that you know isn't right for you. I think that is the hardest decision on the planet for most people.